Alrighty, welcome back to MTG Anonymous, your favorite place for all the mill and just silly historic and commander decks. So today we have Steel and Mill. This is a revamp of a deck I made a long time ago. I made the deck really because I like stealing things and making other people miserable. It's gotten a lot of people to scoop because they don't like their stuff being stolen, especially in the new meta, but none of the cards in this deck are new. So let's start off with the mana and ramp fixing. First off, we have Into the North. This allows you to search your library for a snow card, put it in the battlefield tap, then shuffle. So we have exactly 3 snow cards. So really, this is just so we can get our extra. Excuse me. We have Make sure I'm right. Yeah, we have 3 snow cards. So technically, you could put a couple more in just to make it more synergistic. If we already have any of them in our hand, then we're not really worried about casting Into the North, so it becomes a dead card. But it's almost never happened that we've had Into the North in our card and in our hand and one of these, so we're not really worried about it. Path of the World Tree is next, for 1 and a green. When this enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then for 2, Wooburg, sacrifice this enchantment. You gain life equal to... you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Target opponent loses 2 life. This enchantment deals 2 damage to up to 1 target creature. You create 2 green creature tokens. So what does that do? So 1, it gets us a basic land card. So again, another ramp. We get to play. Obviously, we get to play the card if we weren't able to before. And then we can sacrifice it because we get that 2/2 bear. But you probably already see why that matters. But yeah. Next is Cultivate. Obviously, you know what Cultivate does, but for 2 and a green, search for 2 basic land cards. You get to put 1 onto the battlefield tapped, put the other in your hand, so that allows us to have a land drop for the next turn. I have 3 of those. For some reason, I only had that 1 special, so they're 2 different ones. Circuitous Route. For 3 and a green, search your library for 2 basic land cards and or gates, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. We have no no gates, so we would grab 2 basic land cards. Obviously, they're going to be either the island or the forest. Next is Quandrix. So Quandrix is ramp on a creature. So because most of the time we're going to have 4 mana on the 3rd turn, we're able to play this and ramp again. So really, this is just to keep our opponent from killing us while also getting us a forest or an island. Eureka Moment allows us to draw 2 cards, so that's mana and fixing at this point. Then we get to put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. So if you had 8 mana, played Cultivate, so you have the extra land in your hand. If you had played a land already, play Eureka Moment. Now you get that land. You have 2 lands untapped, and you're able to play something else, preferably. Golos is actually here for mana ramp. Eventually, we'll get to the point where we don't want to be casting any more of these spells, so we'll exile the top 3 and use the ability. But for 5, when Golos enters the battlefield, you search your land library for a land card. Most of the time, it's going to be the World Tree. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then last but not least is the World Tree. The World Tree is a land, taps for green, as long as you control 6 or more lands. Lands you control have any tap for any color. And then for Wooburg, 2 times, sacrifice this land, search for any number of god cards. We have no god cards, so that doesn't matter. Next we have Control and Theft. So obviously you know what that means. I want to steal stuff from our opponents, and then preferably make them scoop. So let's see if I can find the first one. First one, which is the most important one, is Hostage Taker. So this is going to be the one we really care about copying a lot. But for 2 blue-black, when this creature enters the battlefield, exile another target creature artifact until this creature leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. So as soon as we're able, we want to drop Hostage Taker and and a copier, so that way we can exile 2 things on our opponent's side and then use them against them. Next is Tempted by the Auric. So for 1 blue, 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 for each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls with mana value 3 or less. We're going to really save this for our opponent's important creatures or planeswalkers, so we do not want to blow this as soon as we get it. Next, we have Invoke the Winds for 1 blue, 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 so 4 blues. Gain control of target artifact or creature, untap it. Again, important things. Important artifacts or creatures, meaning if our opponent can win the game with them, we want to use this. Next is the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer is one of my favorite cards. Again, just like Hostage Taker, if 3 blue, blue, when this creature enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you control this creature. So it can be a little bit hectic, because most of the time they see this, they want to kill it. But they're going to, most of the time, target Hostage Taker instead. So we just get to keep this without any special tricks. Hostage Taker, we have to play the card that we stole, while Mind Flayer, we just take it. Next, we're going to talk about Entrancing Melody. This one is an X spell, so for X blue blue, gain control of target creature with mana value X. Unfortunately, this has to be an exact number, so say they have a Golos on their side, we would have to play 7 mana, so 5 colorless and then 2 blue. This is in here really just because. For some reason my notes say or less, but that is not the case. Mass Manipulation is one of my favorites, so the reason why we have all of those mana ramp and fixing spells for XX, blue, 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 gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. Again, Tempt of the Orc is for the 3 or less. This one can grab any of them, preferably if we ever run into an opponent that has multiple planeswalkers is when we want to cast this, or once we've run out of lands in the deck, and it's very, very easy to do so. Last, we have Lullmage's Domination. For X blue, 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 this spell card costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature whose controller has 8 or more cards in the graveyard. Our opponent will always have 8 or more cards in their graveyard before we can play this. Gain control of target creature with mana value X. So next we're going to tell you why I believe that that's the case. Alter the Brood. If you've been a fan of the channel, or if you've been on the channel in the past ever, you know that I play Alter the Brood in almost every single deck that I can squeeze it in. With this deck, we're going to play all of our lands all of the time. And every time a land or Golos or a copied creature enters the battlefield, or another permanent you control enters, each opponent mills a card. I can easily mill our opponent out with this deck. Especially because, well, I'll save that for a second. So next we have token and copy effects. So the control ones, obviously, we only have 2 creatures, or excuse me, you have 3 creatures to do it, but 2 creatures that are able to enter. So Hostage Taker and Mind Flayer are going to be the target of as much copy effects or token generators as we can. So first off is Quasiduplicate. This is one of my favorites because of Jumpstart, but we'll talk about Jumpstart first. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs, then exile this card. So if we've gotten to the point where we have most of our lands and the World Tree, there's really no reason to play any more lands, so hold them in your hand and use them for this Jumpstart ability. But for 1 blue blue, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. Again, we're going to hit the Mind Flayer, or we're going to hit Hostage Taker, just depending on if they have a whole bunch of artifacts or if it's just big creatures. And then, like we said, for Jumpstart, if we discard a land, then we're able to recast the spell for 1 and a blue. Next, Croaking Counterpart. This is actually not for our deck. This is for our opponent. Create a token that's a copy of target non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 green frog. And then it has flashback 3 green blue. Flashback means we can play it from our graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. Obviously, that means we're able to grab 2 of our opponent's things, but they're 1/1s. We don't really care about that. If for some reason we have no opponent things that we can steal, or nothing that would be a great copy. What we would instead do is either copy the Hostage Taker or the Mind Flayer, preferably Hostage Taker, because then we'd be able to play the card and not have to worry about the 1/1 dying. So Ovar the All form is another one of my favorite cards. For 3 and a blue, it's a legendary creature, Shapeshifter 3/3. It has Changeling, meaning it has every type. That doesn't really matter here, but in other decks it does. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. So basically this says every time I cast Quasiduplicate, make a copy of the Hostage Taker again, or make a copy of the Mind Flayer again. And then the same thing would be with Lullmage's Domination. If for some reason it's harder to grab something, we can actually use this on our own creatures, and it doesn't change control, but it does target. And then last for token effects is Thousand Face Shadows. This is actually a really funny card. We can reset the Hostage Taker using this card. So for 1 blue, you get a Human Ninja 1/1, but the best part is the ninjutsu. So 2 and a blue, it's flying. When it enters the battlefield from your hand, if it was attacking, create a token that's a copy of another attacking creature. The token enters tapped and attacking. So basically what I want to do is I want to be attacking with 2 creatures, so maybe 2 Hostage Takers. If I have my original Hostage Taker in, I will pull it out, play the Thousand Face Shadow, and it will become a copy of the other Hostage Taker. So now I've reset my original, I have a new one, so I get to steal something, keeping it from blocking, and I get to play the original again. Next is the Planeswalkers. We have 2 of them. Both of them are Shahili. If I said that wrong, please let me know, because obviously pronunciation ain't my thing. But for 1 blue-red, you get 3. This one is in here for the -2. There's no reason to read other 2. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. So once she enters, we're going to use the ability to make a copy, obviously, of Hostage Taker or Mind Flayer. Preferably not Mind Flayer, since it dies at the end of the turn, but Hostage Taker, steal something, play the thing we stole, and then we don't care if it dies. And then the +1 we'll literally just use just so we can use the -2 following that. And then Sublime Artificer, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which, surprise, there are a lot of them, create a 1/1 colorless Servo artifact creature token. So this goes with all of our other cards. And then -2, target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its types. So this is just so we can get to, like, end the game. It doesn't necessarily do anything else, because those copies are already in the battlefield, so they don't count for, like, making a new Mind Flayer or making a new Hostage Taker. And then last we didn't talk about was Venerated Rot Priest. So Toxic is really good in this deck, again, because we target things. So for 1 green, Toxic 1, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. And then poison, if they have 10 or more, they lose the game. So basically what we do is we have Venerated Rot Priest along with Orvar on the battlefield. So now every time we use an instant or sorcery, we copy the Venerated Rot Priest, and then each one of those triggers by themselves. So after we have 4 copies of Venerated Rot Priest, we basically win the game, and we can do that as early as turn 5. So last but not least, there are quite a few, like, lands. Obviously 9 islands, because we need each of the individual color pips. And then 1 swamp. I don't necessarily remember why. Oh, right. That's so we can play the Hostage Taker early if we have to. Then that also gives us the Haunted Mire. So if we get the swamp or the Haunted Mire, then we're good. A lot of our cards that bring cards into our hand are going to care about basics, so more than likely we get the swamp first. Highland Forest, Rimewood Falls, Ketria Triome, Zagoth Triome, and then the World Tree. Anyway, if you like this deck, give it a try. There aren't many. Let me check. MTG Goldfish. So there's 1 mythic, 22 rares, 9 common, uncommons, and then 27 commons. So this is a really cheap deck. If you were to play it on MTGO, it's $3.28. So, yeah, excuse me, 3.28 ticks. So not $3.28. Anyway, if you like this deck, try it out. There'll be a link down below to the MTG Goldfish site. That's where I put all my deck list. And if you have any comments or concerns or just any cards that will fit better, I'm probably going to be playing this deck on just the ranked, just to rank up a little bit. And then more than likely I'll go through another iteration. This is basically version 2 of the original one that I had. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.